The price you put on your work is a confession. Every invoice, every proposal, every my rate is tells the other person exactly how much power you believe you deserve. And most of you are confessing to crimes you never committed. By the end of this, you'll understand the machinery behind why you discount yourself, and you'll have a framework to stop doing it, one that has nothing to do with arithmetic. Think about the last time you quoted a price for your work. That moment right before you said the number out loud. There's a physical sensation, a tightening somewhere between your chest and your throat. You had a number in mind, a real one. Then you edited it downward, and the relief hit instantly. That relief is the tell. You just paid money to avoid a feeling. Behavioral economists have a term for this: loss aversion applied to social capital. You'd rather lose revenue than risk the other person's disapproval. The math on this is brutal. If you undercharge by 20% on every project for a decade, you've effectively worked 2 of those years for free. 2 years of your life donated to the comfort of a 3-second conversation. So why does this happen to smart, competent people? Because pricing yourself activates a completely different psychological system than pricing objects. When you put a price tag on a lamp, you assess the market, the materials, the margin. Clean. Rational. When you put a price tag on your own time, you're simultaneously answering the question, what am I worth as a human being? And that question has been wired into your identity since childhood. Here's where it gets specific. Researchers studying negotiation behavior found that the single strongest predictor of whether someone would undercharge wasn't skill level, wasn't experience, wasn't even gender though. Gender played a role. The strongest predictor was whether the person grew up in a household where talking about money was treated as rude. That one variable, dinner table silence about finances, echoed forward into adult pricing behavior decades later. You absorbed a rule before you could question it. Asking for money is impolite. Asking for a lot of money is greedy, and greed makes you a bad person. So every time you set a price, you're running that old program. The adult version of you knows it's irrational. The 7-year-old who internalized the rule doesn't care about your logic, but knowing the origin story only gets you halfway. The real damage happens in what underpricing signals to the market, and this part surprises most people. When you charge significantly below market rate, clients don't think, "What a bargain." They think, "What's wrong?" A study from the Journal of Consumer Research showed that identical products priced 30% below competitors were rated as lower quality, even when participants could physically inspect them and confirm they were the same item. Price is information. Low price is a specific kind of information. It says, even the person selling this doesn't think it's worth much. You've experienced this yourself. You've scrolled past the cheapest option on Amazon because something felt off. You've chosen a slightly more expensive restaurant because the one next door seemed too cheap to be good. Your clients do the same thing with your proposals. A freelance designer named Marcus shared something on a business forum that captures this perfectly. For 2 years, he charged $50 per hour. Steady work, decent clients, constant stress about money. His mentor told him to double his rate. Marcus was terrified, certain he'd lose everyone. He raised it to $100. He lost 2 clients. He gained 4 new ones within a month. The new clients were easier to work with, had clearer briefs, and never questioned his process. The price increase functioned as a filter. The people who valued cheap wanted cheap everything. Cheap timelines, cheap revisions, cheap respect for his boundaries. That filtering effect is the part nobody warns you about. Your price selects for the type of relationship you'll have. Charge too little, and you attract people who see your work as disposable. Charge appropriately, and you attract people who see it as an investment they want to protect. So what's the actual mechanism for changing this? Confidence seminars will tell you to know your worth. Useless advice. Worth is contextual and shifts constantly. A surgeon's hands are worth millions in an operating room, and nothing at a piano recital. You need something more concrete than a feeling. Start with the market. Research what 3 people with your experience and skill set charge for the same work. Get real numbers. Ask directly if you have to. Most people skip this step entirely. They price based on what feels acceptable to them, which is just measuring their own discomfort and calling it a business strategy. Once you have market data, you'll likely discover a gap. The number the market supports and the number you've been charging will be different. Sometimes wildly different. That gap has a name. It's the price of your avoidance. Every dollar in that gap is a dollar you sacrifice to dodge uncomfortable conversations. Now try this. Write down your ideal rate, the one your stomach says is too high. Write the market rate next to it. In most cases, your too high number will be at or below the market average. Your internal alarm system is miscalibrated. It was set by a 7-year-old who got scolded for asking for a bigger allowance. It has no business running your pricing. The next piece is mechanical. Practice saying your price out loud. Alone, to a wall, to a mirror, into a voice memo. It sounds ridiculous, and it works. The discomfort you feel when stating a higher price is a physical response. Exposure reduces it. Say, my rate is $200 per hour, 40 times, and the flinch disappears by around the 15th. Your mouth gets used to forming the words. Your ears get used to hearing them. The sensation in your chest quiets down because your brain stops classifying the sentence as a threat. Critics will point out that some markets genuinely can't bear higher prices, that raising rates only works if demand supports it. Fair. If you're operating in a saturated market with commodity services, price alone won't save you. But here's the distinction most people miss. They assume they're in a commodity market before testing whether they actually are. They project their own undervaluation onto the entire market. Nobody would pay that often means I would feel uncomfortable charging that. Those are wildly different claims. There's a deeper layer here too. Underpricing isn't just a financial problem. It creates a feedback loop that reshapes how you see your own work. When you charge $50 for something that takes 8 hours of focused expertise, your brain starts to believe the work is actually worth $50. You invest less energy. You cut corners, not out of laziness, but because the price trained you to see the work as low stakes. The client picks up on that reduced investment. They treat the work as disposable, which confirms your belief that it was never worth much. The loop closes and tightens. Raising your price breaks the loop in the opposite direction. A higher rate makes you invest more care. More care produces better outcomes. Better outcomes justify the rate. The client treats the work with respect because they have skin in the game. You start to see your own competence reflected back in how people respond to it. One practical shift that works immediately: stop pricing your time. Price the outcome. 30 hours at X per hour invites the client to scrutinize your clock. This project delivers a website that converts at twice your current rate, shifts the conversation entirely. Now the price is measured against their gain, and your hours become irrelevant. A tax strategist who saves a company $200,000 can charge $50,000 and the client feels lucky. The same strategist billing by the hour would need to justify every 15-minute increment. You've probably noticed something by now. Every piece of advice here is external: market research, practice, reframing. None of it requires you to feel worthy first. That's deliberate. Waiting to feel confident before raising your prices is like waiting to feel athletic before going to the gym. The action comes first. The identity follows. Each successful conversation at a higher rate deposits evidence into the part of your brain that's still running the old program. Enough deposits, and the program rewrites itself. The person reading this who just thought, "But my situation is different." Your situation is always different. Every market has constraints. Every field has ceilings. The question isn't whether limits exist. The question is whether you've actually hit them, or whether you've been flinching 3 feet before the wall. Your next invoice is a sentence you're writing about yourself. Make sure it says what you actually mean.